I was 19 when my father decided I was officially a disappointment, and he didn't just say it once. He repeated it so often that the words started echoing in my head. Uneducated, worthless, a burden. My older brother was the golden child with his perfect grades and big university plans, while I was the dropout who couldn't handle real life. At least that's how Dad described me at every dinner, like it was some kind of family joke. What he never bothered to understand was that I didn't leave college because I was incapable. I left because I was building something quietly, something he couldn't see and didn't care to ask about. Every time he compared me, every time he laughed and said I'd end up begging my brother for a job, I stayed silent, not because he was right, but because I knew arguing wouldn't change how he saw me. The night of his birthday, when he raised a glass and smirked, "Maybe next year you'll finally become someone," I smiled back calmly because the truth was I already had, and he had no idea who I really was becoming. A week after my dad's birthday dinner, the moment everything shifted came quietly, without shouting, without drama, just a plain white envelope with my name on it. He found it before I did. I was in the kitchen when he walked in holding the letter between two fingers like it was something dirty. "What is this?" "Another fantasy," he asked, that familiar mocking smile already forming. I dried my hands slowly and took it from him. It wasn't a fantasy. It was a confirmation. Investment approval, partnership agreement, and the first official acquisition offer for the software platform I had been building in silence for nearly 2 years. While he thought I was wasting time on my laptop, I had been coding through the nights, teaching myself through free courses, testing beta versions with real users, fixing crashes at 3 a.m., and pitching online to people who didn't know me as the disappointment. I didn't rush to explain. I placed the documents on the table one by one. Revenue statements, user growth analytics, legal registration papers, bank confirmation. His expression changed gradually, like someone watching a joke turn into a headline. "This isn't real," he muttered. My brother leaned over his shoulder, scanning the numbers twice. "It says 6 figures," he whispered. I nodded. "Cleared yesterday." The room felt smaller. For years, I had been the quiet one, absorbing every insult, every comparison, every sarcastic comment about my future. Now, the silence belonged to them. Dad tried to regain control. "Money doesn't make you educated," he said, but the sharpness in his voice had faded. "No," I replied evenly, "but discipline does. And so does building something from nothing." I told him about the early failures, the version that crashed on launch day, the investor who laughed at my pitch, the months I earned nothing while he called me useless. I told him I wasn't rebelling, I was preparing. Every time he said I'd be begging for a job, I used that anger to refine my work. Every time he compared me to my brother, I compared myself only to yesterday's version of me. The truth wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It sat there in numbers, signatures, and contracts. For the first time, he wasn't looking down at me. He was looking at documents that proved I had already stepped into rooms he didn't even know existed. He pulled out a chair and sat down slowly, as if his legs had betrayed him. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, softer now. I could have said 100 things. That he never asked, that he wouldn't have listened, that I needed to build it without his doubt hanging over me. Instead, I said, "Because you already decided who I was." My brother, once so confident in his position as the example, looked uncertain. I wasn't angry. That surprised even me. I wasn't there to humiliate him the way he had humiliated me. I was there to state a fact. I was never uneducated. I was self-taught. I was never worthless. I was underestimated. The shift in the room was undeniable. The power dynamic that had shaped our family for years tilted quietly. No shouting, no dramatic music, just reality settling in. Dad folded the papers carefully now, not carelessly like before. The same man who once said I would never become someone, was now trying to understand the someone standing in front of him. And the most powerful part, I didn't need him to clap. I didn't need an apology in that moment. I just needed him to see that while he was measuring success by degrees and titles, I was measuring it by resilience and results. They had no idea that every insult had become fuel, every doubt had become strategy, and every moment of silence had been a step forward. The confrontation wasn't explosive, it was surgical, precise, calm, final. The morning after everything came out, the house felt different, quieter, not tense, just aware. Dad didn't slam doors. He didn't make jokes at breakfast. He kept glancing at me like he was trying to recalculate who I was. For years, he had spoken to me with certainty. Now, there was hesitation, and that hesitation told me more than any apology could. He cleared his throat while pouring tea. I might have been too hard on you, he said carefully, like the words were unfamiliar in his mouth. I looked at him, not with anger, not with triumph, just clarity. You weren't hard, I replied calmly. You were dismissive. The honesty hung in the air, but I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My brother tried to lighten the mood, joking about investing with me, calling me CEO with a half smile, but even he knew something had permanently shifted. I wasn't the younger sibling chasing approval anymore. I had stepped into my own identity, and that changes how people treat you. Dad asked questions that week, real questions, about the platform, about the investors, about my plans, not to judge, but to understand. It should have felt satisfying. Maybe it did, a little, but more than anything, it felt distant, because the version of me that once waited for his validation had quietly expired. I had built myself in the absence of encouragement. I had learned to clap for myself in empty rooms. So when he finally said, "I'm proud of you," it didn't hit the way he expected. I nodded. "Thank you," I said, genuinely, but without hunger. That's the thing about constant doubt. It doesn't just hurt you. It forces you to grow without comfort. And once you grow that way, you stop needing permission to exist. I didn't move out in anger. I didn't cut him off. I didn't deliver some dramatic speech about karma or revenge. I simply created boundaries. I stopped explaining my decisions. I stopped shrinking myself to make conversations easier. When old habits tried to resurface, when he almost compared me again, almost joked at my expense, I didn't argue. I just looked at him steadily. And he stopped. Respect wasn't demanded. It was adjusted. Weeks later, at a family gathering, an uncle asked Dad what I was doing these days. There was a pause. A small one. Then Dad answered, "He runs a company." Not, "He tries." Not, "He thinks he does." "He runs a company." The words were steady, accurate, and I realized something in that moment. This was never about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. Before I left that evening, Dad stopped me at the door. "I didn't know," he said quietly. I believed him. He didn't know who I was becoming because he had already decided who I was. And that's the danger of labels. They freeze people in versions that no longer exist. I gave him a small, calm smile. "That's okay," I said. "I did.